Welcome back to Lux. Today I will show you a 2016 satire dream film named Superfamily. Spoilers ahead, keep an eye out and fare thee well. It's a dim night on the Russian coast, and Oleg is helping a gathering of dealers to take 1 ton of caviar on a little boat. The mariner he's employed fights against the thought, reminding him his boat can convey 600 kilos and doesn't adjust his perspective in any event when Oleg offers him more cash. However, this isn't enough for Oleg to surrender. He professes to call his significant other, however converses with the runner and advises him to say the freight is 600 kilos, so the mariner will take it. The stunt works and Oleg gets his significant amount of caviar stacked on the boat, yet they can't go excessively far. The boat and the freight gradually sink, and the men must choose the option to swim to the shore. At the point when the mariner requests to be paid for the harm to his boat, Oleg gives him his new and current vehicle. So he's left with the mariner's old dilapidated vehicle and obligation of 1 million with the dealers. The following day, Oleg goes to see his sweetheart Sveta at the bank she works at to request a credit. However, she can't give it to him since he hasn't wrapped up paying the one he's now taken. Needing to help, Sveta offers another arrangement. They could ask her family for help since they own a house. Oleg don't really like this thought since he can't stand Sveta's family and would prefer not to see them once more. However, he's out of choices. They drive to her home where the entire family lives respectively. There's Sveta's dad, Boris, who likes to sing strange melodies and hasn't gone out in 5 years since he's a needed man. Her maternal granddad Pavel, who wants to kick the bucket as of now. Her sister Rita, who fills in as a bookkeeper at the theater however, wishes to be an entertainer. Her sibling Tolik, who needs to enlist in the military yet can't in view of his asthma and preferences preparing canines. And her sister Sasha, a little kid that continues wandering off in fantasy land about turning into a developed lady and has eyes only for her Sveta's sweetheart. Oleg attempts to converse with Boris about his cash issue, for which he needs to hold on until he's finished singing. At the point when Boris at last hears what he needs to say, he goes nuts, thinking selling the house resembles offering his family to servitude. Oleg attempts to clear up for them that no one will lose anything. He simply needs an underwriter's letter. Yet all at once it's futile. Boris's response is still no. Unexpectedly, their contention is intruded on when a shooting star gets through the rooftop and terrains in the house and hitting Pavel. From the outset, the family runs outside, figuring they might be enduring an onslaught. However, when they see a shooting star shower overhead, they grasp what's happening and return inside to keep an eye on their granddad. Subsequent to taking him to bed, Oleg and the kin begin digging to take the shooting star out to sell it. Yet individually, the kin fall asleep and let Oleg digging be. He doesn't complete until morning, and when he emerges from the opening, he finds Pavel calling him from bed to let him know he's going to pass on. Oleg needs to call an emergency vehicle, yet Pavel restricts it. He's lived sufficiently long and needs to leave this world in harmony. Prior to dying, he gives Oleg one final back rub to give to his loved ones. They can all push off. In the wake of actually looking at Pavel's heartbeat to be certain it's genuine, Oleg hurries to Sveta to give her the news. However, she's profoundly snoozing and won't focus. Oleg winds up nodding off close to her, and when Tolik comes later to show him something, Sveta is gone. Oleg follows Tolik to the family room and finds the shooting star has changed into an odd fluid. Sasha has acquired super strength, and Rita can fly. Sveta appears a second after the fact, showing up with a portion of her body imperceptible, and Pavel unexpectedly goes along with them too, perfectly healthy. Be that as it may, when Rita has zero control over her new capacity and takes off through the opening on the rooftop, she rapidly tumbles to the ground and Pavel dies again, as Sveta comes completely noticeable. After they help Rita back inside and tie her up so she can't drift away once more, making Pavel stir, they arrive at the resolution that the shooting star has given them exceptional abilities. Sveta figures they ought to call the specialists, and when she leaves the room, Pavel kicks the bucket once more, and Rita quits drifting. It appears to be these exceptional capacities possibly work assuming they're all together. They go to see a specialist to get some information about it. However, the specialist says their sound and their bodies checks out. This hindering impact they get when they separate must essentially be important for how their powers work. Later during supper, they talk about how they ought to manage these powers. Rita needs to perform, yet Pavel figures individuals will investigate them on the off chance that they knew. While Tolik takes care of his canines and finds he can comprehend them now, Oleg lets Boris know that the family ought to show up on television and get compensated for it. However, Boris won't have his family utilized that way. At the point when they hit the hay, Oleg gets some information about the cash they keep in the bank, while she contemplates whether she'll have imperceptible youngsters. The following morning, Pavel attempts to hang himself, yet all at once it's futile. For however long he is around his family, he'll remain alive. Boris finds his power is instant transportation when he goes to the restroom and makes a respectable attempt to ease himself and concludes the family needs a little excursion to manage this. The gathering goes to a lake to fish, and keeping in mind that Boris figures out how to control his power, Oleg educates everybody regarding the arrangement he's thought of. They ought to cooperate to loot a bank. With Sveta being undetectable, she simply has to stroll in then leave with the sack of cash, while everybody sits in the vehicle close by, so she doesn't lose her capacity. Rita, Tulloch, and Sasha are in. Yet Boris keeps on turning down the thought, in any event, saying he couldn't care less on the off chance that Oleg leaves, and they can't utilize their powers any longer. Irate, Oleg gets in the vehicle, and Sveta follows him in the wake of advising his family to place Pavel's body in the storm cellar until they return. Out and about, Oleg attempts to persuade Sveta his arrangement is smart. Yet they're out of nowhere made to pull over by another vehicle. It's the dealers who need their cash. Oleg lets them know he could have it in a month. However, they can't acknowledge that. He'll pay them in a week or they will sell his organs in the Chinese bootleg market. After the runners leave, Sveta at long last comprehends that Oleg's obligation isn't just about the cash. It jeopardizes his life as well. So she acknowledges to help him. The next day, Several takes Boris to see a brilliant new house that they could purchase on the off chance that they stick to the script. Boris doesn't think he really wants another house. However, Sveta at long last goes to bat for herself and lets him know the family is tired of the old shaky house and they will move any place with a working latrine. Boris actually rejects, yet when Sveta begins crying and calls attention to she's requesting his assistance without precedent for her life, yet he will not pay attention to his little girl, Boris at last yields and acknowledges to burglarize the bank. Subsequent to examining the subtleties of how they'll pull it off, the family praises the new life they'll have, and Sasha continues to intrude on Oleg and Sveta when they attempt to have some confidential time together. The following morning, she even sets some makeup on to dazzle him. Oleg is shocked when out of nowhere, all the relatives begin putting down conditions on the off chance that he believes them should team up. Pavel needs to be incinerated after the burglary is finished, Rita needs to fly before a crowd of people, and Sasha needs to have a date with him. Oleg believes they're requesting excessively and won't team up. Yet Boris chastens him and lets him know that if he has any desire to be important for the family, then, at that point, he'll help them consequently, or the arrangement is finished, so Oleg must choose the option to satisfy everybody's desires. Subsequent to visiting the theater Rita works at and booking her show, Oleg at long last finds what his power is while in bed with Sveta. He can spill water out of his finger, which Sveta brings up is valuable for watering the plants. The next morning, Sasha joins the couple when they go look at the bank that will be their casualty. It's not the one she works at, so they can keep away from doubt. While they talk about the subtleties, Sasha asks what might occur on the off chance that Sveta was gotten and shipped off prison. Pondering who might deal with Oleg. Entertained, Sveta cooperates and tells her she can make it happen. At the point when they get back, they figure out Tulloch has shaved his head, since he's at long last been acknowledged in the military, and that implies he will not be accessible to ransack the bank. Boris is miserable that he'll lose his child, however Oleg can't quit contemplating the arrangement, so he makes some things happen among his contacts, and gets the military to converse with Tulloch and let him know it was every one of the in error. Tulloch is clearly angry and annoyed about this development, yet Boris doesn't conceal how satisfied he is that the military has, as per him, seen the light. Oleg solaces Tulloch, letting him know that after they loot the bank, he can converse with certain individuals he knows and get him it, acquiring Tulloch's trust as he embraces him. Then, they go to a burial service home to make the plans for Pavel's incineration. The worker provides them with a piece of paper that Pavel can adhere to his chest, so when the police think that he is dead, they'll be aware to take him there. Subsequently, Oleg takes Sasha out for lunch at an extravagant eatery, while the family watches them from a far distance, and Sveta imperceptibly sits close to them to watch out for her sister. Sasha maintains that Oleg should accept her with him after the burglary, since she can't stand her family anymore. However, before Oleg can turn her down, they're intruded on by the bootleggers, who are additionally eating there. They draw nearer to question Oleg, and when Sasha sees they're troublemakers, she stands up and feels free to them up. The entire family begins taking off to remain generally safe, making Sasha lose her super strength. Lastly, abandon the bootleggers also. Afterward, the family goes through the late evening standing by listening to Tulloch's canine sing the public hymn. The next day, it's at long last opportunity to execute the arrangement. Oleg leaves the vehicle across the road under the sun, on the grounds that the shadowed back street Boris focuses at has a no leaving sign. Since she can make her body undetectable, however not her garments, Sveta takes them off prior to strolling into the bank imperceptible and exposed along with Oleg. She chases after the workers to realize every one of the passwords and safe codes, while Oleg snaps a photo of the floor map in the event that they need to escape. In the meantime, Boris is fed up with the sun and chooses to move the vehicle to the little rear entryway to get fresher air. This ends up being an issue. That region is just for the bank's heavily clad trunk to stop at, and when one of them shows up, they request that the family move away. Boris rejects since it would make Sveta become a parent, so seeing they have no other choice, the watchmen utilize their own truck to drive the vehicle away. As Sveta shows up before a worker and a client that can't completely accept that how the situation is playing out, the family calls Oleg, who surges outside and assists them with hauling Pavel's body to the front of the bank. so they can be generally nearer to Sveta once more. She immediately recuperates her powers and vanishes, so the two men that saw her think they were fantasizing. The family prepares to leave, however, is come by the police, who just need to mind them. Boris, be that as it may, believes he's a needed man and magically transports away, showing up inside the police's truck without importance to and getting captured for it. Hours after the fact, Oleg gets him out subsequent to losing one more vehicle as installment, and when they get back, he lets the family know that Boris isn't needed, all things considered, and it had all been his creative mind. Angry, he hollers at everybody for acting mischievously and makes them guarantee there won't be additional contentions or abuse of their powers. The following day, however, they actually need to take Rita to the theater since it was important for the arrangement. At the point when it's her chance to perform, she sees there's a major group, including individuals she knows, and gets anxiety in front of large audiences. Rita flies out of the theater, not having any desire to perform any longer, and when Oleg pursues her, he's found by the dealers, who take him to the stage and toss him around as they beat him up, making him the new demonstration of the day. At the point when they're at long last finished and let him go, Oleg is so furious and harmed that he affronts the entire family for the disappointments they continue experiencing, calling them apathetic, egotistical blockheads, fit for involving the best innovation on the planet to simply scratch their backs. Oleg attempts to leave them, not needing anything more to do with them. However, Boris gets a thought and chooses to grab him. At the point when dusks, the family returns to the bank, prepared to pull off the burglary, while Pavel occupies a few alcoholic men that are hanging out neighboring by drinking fuel and lighting his breath ablaze. The remainder of the family covers their countenances and prepares to strike. Sasha pushes a truck before the road they are at to conceal what they're doing. Then, at that point, she pulls a chain Rita has placed on the window, opening an opening in the wall. Boris magically transports inside, and Sasha tosses Sveta into the opening, before Rita gets her and flies her there with the others. Then, Sveta utilizes the codes she figured out how to incapacitate the alert, and Sasha just gets the safe and tosses it out in the city. As the family begins taking the cash out and tossing it in the vehicle, the police show up, however Talik keeps them occupied by sending the canines after them. When they have all the cash they could take, they get away from subsequent to getting Pavel, who abandons a fire him as he takes off. The sun has raised when they make far away from the bank to pause and celebrate. Pavel utilizes that second to help them to remember the last piece of the arrangement and requests that they abandon him, so he can at last pass on. After everybody says their farewells to him, the family drives away. Yet they lash out when they see Pavel's body fall dead and return to help him. Pavel doesn't acknowledge this and shouts at them, reminding them this is what he needs. Boris cuts in saying they should live respectively as a cheerful family. However, Oleg reminds him they can't remain in light of the fact that the arrangement they pulled off wasn't quite so smooth as the first, and the police will track down them eventually. In addition, he and Sveta have previously intended to go to Thailand, Talik will leave for Moscow, and Sasha and Rita need to go to Brazil. The young ladies maintain that Boris should go with them, however he lacks opportunity and energy to answer in light of the fact that Pavel lets them know he's known as the police, so they can view his soon-as dead body. So the family leaves for good this time. Seeing her granddad pass on really disturbs Sveta, who won't get the cash when Oleg begins separating it a few hours after the fact, saying they ought to give it back. Oleg declines, so Sveta removes him from the vehicle, saying she would rather not be with him any longer. Seeing as the family hasn't changed, all things considered, Oleg leaves and deals with his business. He pays the bootleggers what he owed them, then, at that point, conceals the remainder of the cash by taping it to his body under his garments. At the point when he goes to the air terminal, prepared to leave the country, he sees on the news that the family has been captured for attempting to recuperate Pavel's body from the burial service home. From the outset, he makes an honest effort to disregard it. However, when he gets onto the plane, he can't manage the responsibility any longer and gets back to town to help them. His most memorable stop is the burial service home, where he attempts to pay off the representative to give him the body back. Seeing as there are such countless individuals frantic to have Pavel, the man requests 1 million and doesn't take some other of the lower sums Oleg attempts to haggle with. Since as he has no other decision, Oleg pays all the cash he has left and takes Pavel with him to the court where the family is being investigated. When they step inside, everybody recuperates their powers and tumult results. Boris magically transports out of the enclosure and keeping in mind that he and Pavel fire whipping individuals, Sasha breaks the enclosure to let her kin out. Together they take out different officials while the other individuals take off, and presently they're undeniably rejoined. Boris acknowledges that this sort of insane arrangement authoritatively makes Oleg part of the family. Hanging tight outside for them there's a gathering of equipped police, who Rita occupies by hovering above them claiming to be a strict spirit. This gives them sufficient opportunity to take a vehicle and drive away. Yet the police before long wake up and begin pursuing them through the city. Boris magically transports within one of the squad cars to make them drive away. Sasha pushes others with her super strength, and when they unintentionally pass through a vegetable stand and the mirror gets messy, Oleg cleans it with the water he pours from his finger. Sasha utilizes her solidarity again to assist the vehicle with making an unexpected turn, making all the police vehicles run into one another, with the exception of one. They figure out how to at long last lose it when Rita stands up and pushes up the vehicle as she flies up, making the vehicle float away with her. In a little while, the family meets with the runners and pays them to conceal them in one of their holders so they can disappear to Thailand undetected. Presently they have 20 days in front of where their main organization will be one another.